Animation is a great tool to enhance the user experience on your apps. It helps to gain user attention and increase user engagements with your app. However, most developers are reluctant to add animation into their app because they feel that animation is hard to code, time-consuming, and might slow down the app performance. In this tutorial, I will show you how easy we can add animation into our app without spending a lot of time and slow down our app performance. Welcome back to Just Code channel. Please support us by subscribing to our channel and like our video. If you have any question in this tutorial, please leave a comment below. Today's tutorial, we will continue to modify the dictionary app we have created in the past tutorial to illustrate how to add animation into our app. First, we need to know how animation works in mobile apps. There are two ways. The first way is the animation will animate itself within given time duration and iterations once it is triggered. The second way is the animation will animate based on user interaction with the device. For example, scrolling, dragging, pinching, and swiping. There is no fixed time duration for the second way. The animation features is built in with React Native framework. Let's bring up VS Code with the project folder open. Before we start coding, let us define the animation we are going to add in the dictionary app. We will add two animations to showcase the time-based animation and user interaction animation. The first animation we are going to add is to animate the app icon on the main page by scale up and fade up the icon simultaneously when the user taps on the search button. This is to replace the activity indicator. The animation should repeat itself until the Oxford API returns the data to the app. In the second animation, we will minimize, rotate, and fade out the app icon when the user scrolls the content of the word definition returned by the API. When the main icon is faded out, a small icon will appear at the top left of the screen. Let's open the index.js under the source screen search folder. First, let us import the required modules for animation from React Native. We will also import the logo image file and define the isIPhoneX method to detect if the app is running in the iPhone X device. We need to know the app is running in iPhone X or not because iPhone X have a notch at the top of the screen. Therefore, we need to prevent the animation UI from being blocked by the notch. Then, we will create a constructor to define the state to hold the scales and opacity for the app icon with an initial value set to 1. Next, we create a method called Animate loading that returns the animation that animates the app icon. Now, let's define and return a simple time-based animation that changes the app icon scale from 1 to 3 within 400 milliseconds with easing effect. The easing effect makes the animation more realistic. You can refer to React Native official website for more detail on animation effects. Next, we will define a method called Stop Loading Animation. As the name suggests, it will stop the loading animation and reset the scale and opacity back to 1. Now, we need to invoke both the Animate loading and Stop Loading Animation methods. When invoking the Oxford's API, scroll down to the onSearch method. Just above the try statement, we invoke the Animate loading method to get the animation and assign it to loading animation variable. Once we got the animation, we will start the animation by calling the start method as shown. We also need to stop the animation once Oxford API returns the data. To achieve that, we need to invoke the stop loading animation methods as shown. Next, we need to modify the UI JSX element to perform the animation. First, let's move the entire view element that holds the icon and text out from the scroll view element, so that the icon will not move when the user scrolls the content. We will modify the view element style to position absolute and set the z-index alignments and top position. The top position will depend on whether the device is Android or iOS. If it is iOS, it will further check is it iPhone X or not. We then add animated in front of image element for the icon to tell React Native we are going to animate the image. We change the image source from required method to logo source. Then, we add in a new style for the image element to perform the animation. We set the opacity to loading opacity state. Under the transform style, we set the scale to the loading scale state. Scroll down to the activity indicator. We will remove this element as we don't need it anymore. Scroll up again to the search button. We will add in the disable property to disable the button when the API is loading data. Let's compile and test run the application on the iOS simulator. The app has launched in the simulator. Let's key in a word in the text box to perform a search. You will see the icon is being scaled up and hold its size. When the API returns the word definition, it will fire the stop loading animation method, which will stop the animation and reset the scale back to 1. However, this animation is not complete. The icon should fade out when it is scaled up. Let's modify the animation to add in the fade out effect. Since the fading effect should be executed at the same time when the icon is scaled up, therefore, we need to run the fading animation parallel to the scaling animation. We will create a parallel animation, and within it, we add in the scaling and fading animation in an array as shown. Let's save the file and click on the search button again. Now, you will see the icon is being scaled up and fade out. However, this animation still not meet our requirements. The scale up and fading animation should reset back to 1 when the icon is scaled up and fade out. To achieve that, we need to have a sequence of animation. Now, we will create an animation sequence that takes in an array of animations as shown. The second item in the array is the parallel animation that resets its scale and opacity back to 1 once the icon is being scaled up and fade out. Let's save the file and click on the search button again. We will see the icon will reset back to the original state once it is being scaled up and fade out. Again, this animation still not meet our requirements. We need to repeat the animation as long the API is still loading the data. To do that, we need to create a loop animation that takes in the animation sequence as shown. This will loop the animation until it is stopped manually when the API returns the data. Let's save the file again and click on the search button. Now, we will see the complete animation based on our requirements. We had completed the first animation that will execute based on a given time duration. I showed you how to use the timing, parallel, sequence, and loop method from the animated module to create a complete animation effect. Isn't it easy and straightforward? Next, I will show you how to create animation that execute based on user interaction with the UI. Let's recall the requirements for the second animation. The second animation will minimize, rotate, and fade out the app icon when the user scrolls the content of the word definition upward. When the main icon is faded out, a small icon will appear on the top left of the screen. We start by defining the maximum scroll pixel to 100. This means that when the user scrolls the screen up by 100 pixels, the animation will complete the execution. Next, we define the scroll-while state in the constructor to hold the number of pixels had scrolled by the user. Next, we create a method called getLoadingImageScale. In it, we invoke the interpolate method from scroll-while state to return the scale of the logo depending on how much the user has scrolled the content. The interpolate method takes in the input range, which is from 0 to max scroll pixel, and the output range is from 1 to 0. This means that the scale will be 1 when the user hasn't scrolled the content. When the user starts to scroll the content for 50 pixels, then the scale will be 0.5. If the user scrolls for 100 pixels or more, then the scale will be 0. The extrapolate parameter is set to clamp, means that the output scale will clamp at the output range. The useNative driver parameter tells the React Native engine to render the animation using the UI thread, making the animation run faster. You should set the useNative driver to true whenever possible. However, some styles like height and width do not support useNative driver. Therefore, if your animation needs to change those styles that are not supported by useNative driver, then you need to set useNative driver to false. Next, we will create the getLogoImageAngle method similar to the getLogoImageScale. However, for this method, we interpolate the angle of the app icon. The output range of the icon angle will be from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. Please take note that the value must be a string with DEG unit. The next method is the getLogoOpacity method. This method interpolates the logo opacity. Take note of the input and output range. Both contain a 3-item array instead of the usual 2 items. This results the output logo opacity to remain in the value 1 when the user scrolls up from 0 to 80 pixels. After 80 pixels, the opacity will start to reduce to 0 when the user scrolls to 100 pixels or more. At the render method, we will invoke the 3 methods we have just created to get the scale, angle, and opacity animation value. We will create a new animated.image element just above the app icon. These elements hold the small app icon to be displayed on the top left of the screen when the main app icon disappears. To achieve that, we will use the logo opacity animation value for the element opacity. However, we need to reverse the opacity value by using the animated.subtract method as shown. Now, we are going to modify the main app icon to perform the scaling, fading, and rotation animation. However, the main app icon is already animated by the loading opacity and loading scale state value. To allow the interpolate logo opacity and logo scale value to take effect on the existing animated icon, we will use the animated.multiply method to multiply the different set of animation value as shown. We will also add in the rotate transform as shown. Next, we will add in the opacity and transform for the animated.text so that the JavaScript dictionary text will become smaller and fade out when the user scrolls the content up. The last thing we need to do is to update the scroll-while state when the user scrolls the content up. To do that, we will replace the scroll view to animated.scrollViewElement. In it, we will define the onScroll event as shown. We will set the scrollWise state to the content offset under the native event. That's all for the second animation. Let's save the file and see the effect in Simulator. When we scroll the content up, we will see the main app icon will scale down, rotate, and fade out. The text will also scale down and fade out. When we scroll till 80 pixels, we will see the small app icon start appearing at the top left of the screen. We have completed the two types of animation. If you still feel that adding animation into app is complicated, we can further simplify by using a pre-built animation package like React Native Animatable NPM module. Let's bring out the terminal screen, key in yarn add React Native Animatable and press enter to install the module. Now, bring out VS Code again and open the index.js from source screen setting folder. We will add bouncing animation to the three language buttons. First, we import the animatable module as shown. Next, we define three class variables to hold the reference of the three buttons. Scroll to the render method. We will wrap the three touchable opacity element with animatable.viewElement and assign the respective reference as shown. Scroll up to the update language method. We will get the button the user had tapped on and invoke the bounce in method to animate the button as shown. Let's save the files and navigate the app to the setting page. Tap on any of the buttons and you will see the bouncing effect animation on the buttons. Isn't it easier to implement than the previous two animations? Let's reload the application again and go to all the animation we have created. We have come to the end of this tutorial. Today, I have shown you how to add animation to the app. I have shown you the different ways of animation when using the built-in animation in React Native. I also shown you how to simplify the animation with pre-built animation package like React Native Animatable. Please refer to React Native Animatable GitHub page for more information on this module. If you require complex animation, then I would suggest that you use the built-in animation in React Native or use the React Native Reanimated NPM module. The React Native Reanimated NPM module is very similar to the built-in React Native animation. If you have any question regarding this tutorial, please leave a comment below. You can follow the link to get the source code for this tutorial on our GitHub page. If you find our video useful, do support us by like our video, subscribe our channel, and click on the notification bell. Thanks for watching. Bye.